Stop. Before you click away, before you tell yourself this doesn't apply to you, let me ask you something that will make you deeply uncomfortable. How many of your relationships have ended the exact same way? How many times have you found yourself in the same suffocating patterns? The same desperate need for approval that feels like drowning? How many therapists have you seen? How many self-help books consumed, only to find yourself right back in the same psychological prison? Here's what nobody will tell you. You are not the victim of your mother's damage. You are its willing executioner. You are not healing because you don't want to heal. You are addicted to your wound, and you use your mother as the perfect excuse to remain powerless, dependent, and psychologically infantile. Carl Jung understood something about the human psyche that most people spend their lives avoiding. The mother complex isn't about your actual mother. It's about the archetypal mother living in your unconscious, the primordial image that predates your individual existence. Your biological mother was simply the first vessel for this archetype to possess you. And possess you it has. Every time you seek approval from authority figures, every time you sacrifice boundaries to avoid conflict, every time you choose partners who treat you like a child, you're not responding to reality. You're responding to an archetypal pattern so deep you mistake it for your identity. The mother archetype represents the great mother who gives life, but also the terrible mother who devours it. Jung warned that when this archetype remains unconscious, it doesn't guide you, it consumes you from within. Look at your life. Really look. How many decisions are made seeking the good mother's approval or avoiding the terrible mother's punishment? How many times do you abandon yourself because you believe self-sacrifice equals love? Your mother isn't holding you back anymore. She probably hasn't been for years. The person holding you back is you, using her memory as the perfect alibi for your refusal to grow up. Jung called this participation mystique, unconscious identification that prevents individuation. You haven't separated from your mother psychologically because separation would mean taking full responsibility for your life. And that terrifies you more than staying stuck. Because staying stuck has benefits, doesn't it? You never risk real rejection. You can blame patterns instead of choices. You never face the possibility of failing when you actually try. You get to remain the tragic hero rather than becoming the author. Every time you say, "I can't help it, this is how my mother raised me," you are choosing to remain a child. Every time you seek a partner to heal you, you're asking them to be the good mother you never had. The mother complex doesn't want you to heal. It wants you to remain in eternal relationship with it, forever seeking, forever lacking, forever dependent. And you are its most devoted servant. You seek others to parent you, avoid adult responsibilities, and believe someone else should handle your emotional needs while you remain innocent and dependent. You compulsively save others, especially those resembling your wounded mother. You enable dysfunction in love's name and feel responsible for everyone's emotions except your own. You believe achieving enough will finally earn the unconditional love that was missing. You exhaust yourself trying to be worthy of love that should have been freely given. You learned your needs were dangerous, so you became a master of disappearing. You avoid conflict, minimize presence, believing small equals safe. You define yourself entirely in opposition to your mother's choices. But opposition is still attachment. You're dancing to the same music in reverse. Each pattern serves the same function, preventing individuation, preserving the mother-child dynamic long after it should have dissolved. Here's what will irritate you most. You choose emotionally unavailable partners not because you have issues. You choose them because they recreate the familiar dynamic of seeking love from someone incapable of giving it. This keeps you eternally reaching, never having to grow into your own power. You stay in jobs that undervalue you because being undervalued feels like home. The mother complex taught you that love means sacrifice. Worth must be earned through suffering. Visibility equals danger. You struggle with boundaries because the mother complex convinced you that saying no equals abandonment, that your needs are selfish, that others' emotional states are your responsibility. This is the shadow of the mother archetype, the belief that you exist to serve others. That value comes from what you provide, not who you are. You've internalized this so completely you call it love, compassion, spiritual growth. But Jung had another insight that destroys this comfortable lie. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Your patterns aren't fate. Your self-sabotage isn't destiny. These are unconscious programs, and you alone have the power to make them conscious and choose differently. Jung understood that healing isn't about resolving your relationship with your mother. It's about differentiating from the mother archetype itself. This means something far more radical than forgiveness. It means psychological death and rebirth. It means killing the part of your identity that depends on being her child. Jung called this symbolic matricide the destruction of the inner mother that keeps you dependent and small. This isn't about hating your actual mother. It's about recognizing that the voice in your head that judges you, limits you, keeps you seeking external validation isn't your voice at all. It's the internalized mother archetype, and it must be dethroned. But here's why most people never complete this process. Symbolic matricide feels like actual death. When you stop being your mother's child, who are you? When you stop seeking approval that's driven your entire life, what motivates you? The terror of individuation is facing the abyss of your own existence without the comforting story of being someone's child. Most people turn back at this threshold. They choose the familiar prison over unknown territory of psychological freedom. The mother complex has one final trick. It convinces you that choosing yourself is selfish, that healing is narcissistic, that claiming your power is aggressive. This is the terrible mother speaking, she who devours her children to keep them close. She whispers that you owe your life to her, that you exist to serve others, that your needs are secondary to everyone's comfort. You believe her? Because you've never questioned whether the voice that sounds like love might actually be psychological enslavement. Your psychological freedom threatens the mother complex because it proves separation is possible, that the child can survive without the mother. That individuation is natural human development. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is being who you are, but being who you are requires discovering who you are not. And who you are not is your mother's child. You are not the repository of her unlived dreams. You are not the inheritor of her limitations. You are not responsible for healing her wounds or carrying her pain." The path to freedom requires what Jung called holding the tension of opposites. You must simultaneously honor your mother's humanity while refusing to be limited by her psychology. You must acknowledge your wounds while rejecting the identity of being wounded. This is the paradox of individuation. Becoming ruthlessly self-responsible while remaining compassionately connected. You must differentiate without dissociating, separate without rejecting, grow without abandoning. The mother complex wants you to choose sides, idealize or demonize, submit or rebel. But psychological maturity means transcending these false dichotomies. Your mother was neither goddess nor demon. She was a human being with her own mother complex, her own wounds, her own unconscious patterns. She did the best she could with what she had, and what she had was often not nearly enough. But that's her story, not yours. Your story begins when you stop using her limitations as your own, when you stop waiting for her to change so you can heal. Here's what Jung understood that most miss: the mother complex doesn't disappear when you become aware of it. The complex can become more sophisticated, disguising itself as spiritual growth, therapeutic insight, or emotional intelligence. You might use psychological language to describe patterns while continuing to live them. You might understand triggers while remaining completely reactive. You might see projections while continuing to project them. Jung called this psychic inflation. The ego's attempt to co-opt archetypal content without being transformed. You become identified with being healed or awakened without actually changing your fundamental relationship to life. Real transformation requires something far more dangerous than understanding. It requires action. It requires choosing differently when every fiber wants to choose the familiar. It requires disappointing people who expect you to remain small. The mother who lives in your unconscious is not your biological mother. She is your own creation, built from memory, fantasy, need, and fear. She is as real as you make her and as powerful as you allow her to be. And she is mortal. She can be dethroned, dissolved, integrated, and transformed. But only by you, only through your choice to stop serving her and start serving your own becoming. The work of individuation requires what Jung called active imagination, conscious engagement with unconscious content. For the mother complex, this means dialoguing with the inner mother, running your life from the shadows. You must speak to her directly. Thank you for trying to protect me, but I no longer need protection from life. Thank you for your concern, but I am capable of making my own choices. Thank you for your love, but I no longer need to earn it through self-abandonment. This is not a one-time conversation, but ongoing negotiation as you reclaim authority over your psyche. The mother complex will resist, will offer compelling reasons to remain dependent, will remind you of every time you failed when you tried to be autonomous. But resistance is not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a sign you're approaching something important. The psyche defends against change because the unknown feels more dangerous than familiar dysfunction. Your job is not to eliminate the mother archetype. It's to develop a conscious relationship with it, to honor what it gave you while refusing to be limited by what it couldn't provide. The final stage requires something most find impossible: forgiving yourself for choosing to remain stuck. You must face the uncomfortable truth. That part of you has enjoyed being wounded, has found identity in being damaged, has used your pain to avoid the risk of truly living. This is not self-blame, it's self-honesty. It's recognizing that staying stuck served a purpose, met a need, provided a benefit, and acknowledging that you no longer need those benefits because you're ready to pay the price of psychological freedom. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This includes accepting the parts that chose dysfunction over growth, victimhood over responsibility, the familiar over the possible. But in this acceptance lies liberation. When you stop judging yourself for being human, you stop needing to be perfect. When you stop demanding your past be different, you become available to create a different future." The mother complex dissolves not through force, but through understanding. Not through rejection, but through integration. Not through healing, but through wholeness.